Climbers, we are the hopeful. We are the future. We are the artists. Let's talk about what's before us now. Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music industry. We are here for you. This podcast exists because we want you to win. We want you to see what we see. Massive amounts of opportunity shrouded in all kinds of bad headlines. But it is easier now than it ever was before to make a decent living, take care of your family, put your kids through college, have the white picket fence, and do what you were born to do instead of wearing the khaki pants and being inside the
khaki ant farm, the cubicle jungle.
The cubicle jungle, the corporate prairie dog farm.
Exactly.
So that's why we called it the Climb, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's a Baxter. That's from a genius who also happens to be my good friend and somebody you want to know. He's a hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. His name is Brent Baxter, and what I love about Brent is that he takes songwriters like you and reveals how to write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then he puts you in touch with the pro so you can make the relationships with you got to have the goods to make the relationship work and make that wheel go around. So having the relationship before you know what you're doing, bad thing, but once he gets you dialed in, he's going to get you the relationship, good thing. And you can find Brent at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that is songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Listen, if you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S. There's no S because there's no other Johnny D.
I'm so fired up.
I'm fired up too for many reasons. One, I just got internet out here, so if anyone's watching the video of this, it's a different background, and I'm in my workshop. So
we go in the new place. At
the new place, we just moved, so everything's still kind of jumbled. And I've been running off hotspots and having to go to my in-laws to record podcast for the past little bit, which has been a pain. But my in-laws are sweet, and so finally got the internet people out here this morning. They got me wired up in a workshop, which is still being used for storage, but will one day eventually become the new Lyric Lab, and I'm excited about that. I'm not excited about spending the money, but
did you say that? Have you had that for word for a while?
That
needs to be a thing.
It should be a thing.
That needs to be a thing.
Notes from the Lyric Lab. So,
yes. Indeed. Yes. So, you know what? Today we are going to spend a little bit of time just kind of talking about 2021 and everything that's happened. And I want to say this at the risk of coming off. I don't want to come off arrogant. I don't want to come off cocky. I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but I am going to be matter of fact. Over the last 6 years, when it comes to predicting things that are going to happen in the music business, I think I'm batting 1,000. Have I missed one? If I have, I missed one. I don't know what it is, though.
I can't think of anything. It just seems to be becoming more and more true, especially in the broad strokes. Like I don't think Taylor Swift ever had that one incident with the chicken nugget that you talked about one time. But I think other than that, I think you've been spot on. I'm making I'm making that part up. I have no idea.
No, but it's been spot on. And listen, it's not because I'm a genius. I tell you what I'm looking at to derive these kinds of predictions and to see the future that I see, because I want you to see it too. But and my mom used to say, water seeks its own level. It's as sure as a drop of water is going to find a crack in that shingle, find the place where it's got to roll down underneath the shingle to get through the paper underneath the shingle, to find a crack in the wood, to get down into your bedroom. It's going to find it. It's unsustainable unless you fix the roof, Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of, I think the number one message that I have tried to put across throughout this whole podcast since we started it, Brent, but certainly in the last couple of years, because of the massive changes that have been happening onto the digital platform. This is what we preach. This is what we see. Um, I want you guys to see the power that you have. I want you to really understand the big picture, and then I want you to get to work
Hmm.
before these spaces start filling up. There's so many places where you can be right now where your competition isn't, because they don't see what you see, and you see that here. That's what this podcast is about. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're
Very
going to get
cool.
into a little philosophy and a really old book that
Hmm.
uh, I'm going to turn some people on to. So
Dante's Seven Levels of Hell. I think that is some of my music experience. Is that that?
No, it's not that
No.
old.
Okay.
1951.
Okay. A little newer than that.
A
Okay.
little younger than that. Yeah, it's
Dante's
20th
Inferno.
century. But so, all right, guys. Well, before we do that, let's take care of a little business here. We are proud as peacocks to be a part of the American Songwriter Magazine's podcast network, which you can find at americansongwriter.com/podcast. There are 14 other shows on this podcast network in terms of the verticals that you like, which is songwriting, music, business, and production, all kinds of stuff for you to see. If you have been a long time climber and you haven't had a chance to go check out these other shows, please do so. If you found us from those other shows on American Songwriter Magazine, welcome to the climb. By all means, we'd love to have you come on in. The water's warm. We we support each other around here. Um, and 15 shows is a lot. They have taken all the risk out. They have put together the Suncast for you. Brent, tell them what the Suncast is that'll help them just dip their toe in some other shows and get some other really important information.
That's right. So, what American Songwriter Podcast Network has done for you is they have curated the top 5 podcast episodes from that week from the podcast network. They deliver them to your inbox every Sunday. And all you need to do to get that, a handy dandy little curation, is to go to americansongwriter.com/suncast. That is SUNCAST, like sun as in Sunday, and cast as in podcast, the Suncast. So yeah, we love it. It shows up in my inbox every Sunday, and of course, I open that sucker up and see if we're in there. And thankfully, we usually are, and it's fun. So it's a good way to get the climb, but it's also just what you should subscribe to anyway. But it's also a good way to get kind of a little sampling platter of what else is on the American Songwriter Podcast Network. Super handy, doesn't cost you anything. It's one of those free subscriptions. Just get you in
Yeah,
your
it's
email
like a free
inbox.
little curation there to say,
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
they go through the trouble listening to all the podcasts and say, hey, here's the 5 best this week.
Mhm.
Check these out, so you don't have to mess with it. Right? That's the tip.
Exactly. Make your life easier.
Join the Climb community if you haven't done so already. That's facebook.com/groups/the Climb community. This is a thriving community. This is not the tumbleweed place that you have where people are either saying nothing and it's a ghost town, or all they're doing is bitching. Not the case here. We have shiny, happy people that are working their butts off and trying to get ahead and sharing their vulgar displays of prowess with one another. And we love it. And we have places for you to share that. I love that. I saw Brad Hacker just put an article in that he thought would help the whole community. Put that in the main feed in the Climb
Mhm.
community. Love that. Thank you, Brad, for doing that. We
Yep.
want to encourage more of that. That was not about Brad in any way, shape, or form. It was just, hey, I'm part of this community. I think you guys could benefit from this information. And he put it there. If it is about you, if it's about a gig, if it's about a
Mhm.
win, if it's about a song that you wrote, a recording that you have, yes, we want to hear that too. Doesn't go in the main feed. Got to keep everything clean, place for everything and everything in its place, right?
That's right.
So that goes into certain places. Let's talk about some wins on Wednesday.
All right. Well, before we get to that, speaking of Brad and the helpful article that he shared, I saw he posted that as well. See, Brad knows that if he can, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like in the
Mm-hmm.
C.L.I.M.B community, he's met several friends, several co-writers. They're getting, and I will get to that in the new heights segment here in a second. But he knows, like, if I put stuff out there that helps this community and the people in it write better songs, make more connections, and I am writing with people in this community, it's funny how that's probably going to come back and help Brad out. Not
Huh.
only do they see his name more in the community as a valuable, like, contributor, not a taker, but a contributor, and then it helps them further their career, and they're writing better stuff, and then he ends up writing with them because he has a little bit of familiarity and positive vibe to his name, and he's a good writer too, and then everybody wins. It's like long term thinking. And he may not
Do you
even be
think
thinking all that.
Brad
He's probably
knows
just doing that
that?
to be helpful. But thing is, it comes back around. Everybody wins.
Everybody, I think he knows it. I just think he wants to be helpful. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's his agenda.
Yeah.
That's son of a b.
Yeah.
Just
Smart
trying
guy.
to help people with
I know.
nothing, asking nothing in return. What kind of person is that?
Terrible. I'll tell you what kind of person it is. It's kind of person with a new height. So Brad said, had another song make it to the re-listen bin for another major artist. This time it's
Yes.
a song written with Karen Fraden called That Kiss. So loving the journey and the climb. So grateful. So that's the kind of person Brad is. And let's share a couple more. So yeah, New Heights is where we encourage you to celebrate your wins with us every Wednesday. It pops up in the feed and you just leave a comment there and it's your time to brag and share the good stuff. Like Taylor Hughes Music said, my song Praying to the Whiskey is up for International Song of the Year. Love your support. And the link to vote is below. And that's at down the road radio.com thing. So it has a link there. So if you want to check out Taylor's music, you can do that. So good luck, Taylor. Let's see another one here. Michael Roth said, I just got a sticker, but it brings back warm memories of my childhood. But that sticker is honorable mention winner at the USA Songwriting Competition for Michael
Oh,
Roth. So
cool.
he got the digital sticker, which
Nice.
makes him feel like a warm little fuzzy little kid again. So
I
anyway,
like that.
other good stuff going on there. Just want to share some of those with you. So congrats, Brad, Taylor, Michael, and the other folks listed here on your new heights, and keep on climbing.
There we go. All right. So, guys, the client community have to ask to be let in, by the way, but we let everybody in. Okay. Just be good boys and girls, or you'll be roadhoused out. That's all we ask. We take care of our client community members. We don't want them being inundated with a bunch of BS.
That's right. We don't spam, we
Put it in the
jam.
right place. That's right. So, follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you consume it. And lastly, you spend this amount of time with us. We got a lot of really loyal climbers, man. We really do. And
Yep.
they do it for a reason, because we continue to work hard to add value to you guys. We take this very seriously. We do not take it lightly. And help us by sharing it with a friend. Tell somebody about it. Okay. Tell another musician, another artist, another songwriter, hey, man, I know maybe you're not a big podcast guy. I know maybe you're not a big podcast girl, but just listen to this one episode. I think you're gonna freak. I think you're gonna love this, and it's gonna excite you. You know, it's gonna get your juices flowing, get you go. Somebody that needs a little bit of spiritual uplifting in terms of their career. This is the place to find it. Share it with them. Okay. So
Awesome.
You ready to get into this, brother?
Take a sip of coffee, and that might help me get ready for your deep thinking.
We got some deep thinking going on. This past year, I've definitely focused on the fact that our beloved record industry is in the midst of a paradigm shift, and has been for a few years now. What is a paradigm shift? It's a pattern shift. It's an absolute 180-degree change in the business model. The major shift is from our industry operating on a broadcast platform where you have massive amounts of reach, a captive audience, and you sell stuff, physical things, records, 8-tracks, cassettes, CDs, and these massive amounts of audiences on television and radio. These are promotion vehicles with a captive audience that had no other choice to listen to music other than to listen to the people that were, on the stations, and they pulled the levers, right? The big industry people pulled the levers. That's how they promoted the demand to go out and buy this stuff, this music, the stuff that we fell in love with, that made us want to become artists. The major shift is now from our industry operating on a broadcast platform to operating on a digital platform, right? And it sounds easy enough, doesn't it?
You'd think so.
Maybe it sounds even easier, I think, to some of us, like on the surface, and it is in a lot of ways. Digital makes things easier, right?
Yeah.
It was certainly, Windows operating system, the Mac OS operating system, all these programs we have made life a lot more efficient for us just in our day-to-day lives, let alone those of us who have businesses and need to work our businesses. And certainly those of us, if it's not your own business, it's your job. How much are you working off of one of those two operating systems? Change the world forever, right? So it's easier now. It certainly easier to create quality recordings these days, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
This makes it easier for more artists to compete in the marketplace in terms of product,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas before, if you didn't have enough money, you didn't get a good recording because it was cost prohibitive,
Right.
right? It's easier to distribute those recordings and make them available for all who want to hear. Want, quote unquote, being the keyword in that sentence
Yeah.
there. This means effective marketing and promotion will always yield results.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't always the case. No one were getting screwed because you created demand for your music, but the store doesn't have your record.
When was the last time, I mean, you went onto a digital space and it was like sold out?
Right.
Sorry, we don't have that record.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, it's happened sometimes when, and this pisses me off, but when artists do, when some of my favorite bands, like from the 80s, will do a re-record so that they can own the master.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I get from a live position. They want to make 100% of the money. They don't want to, long after they've been kicked to the curb by the record label, they
Yeah.
can't sell those records anymore without paying the record label.
Yeah,
And
they got to buy them from the record label. Yeah.
right. So they, they're trying to do business differently. But when I can't find the original recording, which is the one I like, that's kind of sold out. It feels like that. I don't know. So, but that's the feeling, right?
Right, yeah.
And there were lots of reasons back in the days of physical distribution that a store might not have your record, and they were BS reasons, but they were real reasons, and the damage was the same, right? Like,
might be you're the only one in town that likes the Indigo Girls.
Right. That's right.
And so they don't carry it. Or that one other person got to that one copy before you.
Well, let's talk about that's an angle I hadn't even considered. That you're talking about lack of demand in a certain market, right? There's certainly, Sammy Hagar was a multi-platinum Ferrari driving full-fledged rock and roll star who never sold records in St. Louis, major metropolitan area. That market just didn't give a crap about Sammy Hagar. So that's what you're talking about. Let's talk about it from the other end. Let's just talk about the fact that you or your label couldn't afford to manufacture and ship the record to the store.
Yeah.
Because they were having cash flow problems, right? So you've made the demand happen. You're on the radio. You've gotten a couple of big article write-ups or something, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, who are these people? Who are these people? I want this artist. I want this artist." And you're going to the record store and you're not there. Because how many artists just fell out of the spotlight because their record label ran out of money, mismanagement of money. Artists did everything they were supposed to do, but something else happened with the label. Or how about you or your label couldn't afford the massive contracts required to play at the national distribution level required by the Walmarts and the Best Buys, the Targets, the Music Lands, the Tower Records. You guys have no idea the politics that goes on with that. The buybacks on that crap, like Walmart, we'll buy 700,000 records and put them in our stores all across America. But if we only sell 20,000, we're shipping back 680,000 records, and we're going to need a check. Or they're going to net 90 or net 180 on you, so you don't get the payment. You have to front all the money and let it sit out there till they can see what the demand really is.
Yeah,
right. That was a massive amount of stress and money, and it was a mess.
And guess what? Walmart had created that kind of leverage in the music business because they had
there you go,
the shelf space, so they had a lot of leverage.
There they had the traffic.
Yeah.
Hello. And how about you and your label didn't have a strong enough relationships with the gatekeepers to those national and international distributors? There were major companies that did the buying and the decision making for the Walmarts, for the Best Buys, for the Targets, for the Music Lands, for the Tower Records, and handled the back and forth with the labels, right? You guys get the idea. It's certainly easier now to find your audience and put your art in front of said audience. You no longer need anyone's permission.
Right.
There's no longer a tyranny of space.
Oh, man. Okay, so speaking on that, I remember my buddy Tim Meitzen and I, we did this, this was like in the year 2000. We did this record and called 1,000 Acres, and Tim and I I co-wrote all but one of the songs on the record with Tim, so we just went into it together because for me it was like demos and he was making a record because he played out some and would sell them, and we just split all that. We just went in together on this thing. So But I remember going back to our mutual hometown of Batesville, Arkansas, and talking to some different stores just to get some CDs put out on consignment, just so maybe people could bounce into it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having to do that whole deal. And I remember trying to put together a GeoCities website, for Tim, figuring that out for the record, all that. So this is like before MySpace and all that. So I mean, it was trying to just, where can we put this where people can where can we get distribution
Yeah.
on the scene where nobody happened to see them anyway,
Yeah.
even in his
Yeah.
hometown.
I
Way
mean,
easier now.
it's way easier now, right? Like before, you'd have to have that relationship. Remember when everybody's trying to hustle to get their record in like a Starbucks
Yeah.
or their record in? I even think Cracker Barrel started a record label.
Yeah.
Why? Because they had this whole country audience.
Mm-hmm.
They had traffic. Why not sell them something else? Let's start a record label instead of trying to buy it from the labels. Let's develop our own artists because we know we're going to sell a certain amount of these things because they're going to be right by the cash register.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is a huge deal, but that's not. We don't have the tyranny of space in distribution. We don't have the tyranny of space anymore in terms of the marketing vehicles and the promotion vehicles that we use, like a radio station playlist, meaning more artists can make a decent living than before.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the top 40 has turned into the top 44,000. Let's break that down. That means 90% of the radio spins, aka exposure, used to be comprised of only 40 artists.
Whew.
So 90% of the music being consumed was 40 artists, which also translated it largely into sales.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are not exact corollaries, but they're pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Now 90% of all the streams are comprised of 44,000 artists. And everybody's like, yeah, but there's 7 million on Spotify, so that's BS. No, that's a 1,100% increase in your access to exposure.
That's right.
And in real, gosh darn exposure.
Yeah.
Period. It's 1,100% more, and it's growing all the time. Okay. So don't let I mean, we are definitely in a freakish time where people are trying to get votes by telling us we should all have the same life.
Mm-hmm.
We should all make the same amount of money. We should all have no hurdles in life, and somehow like that's magically going to happen.
Right.
Not the case, and it's certainly not the case for artists. There's 7 or 8 million artists on the streaming services, and I'm just here to tell you most of them suck. Sorry, they shouldn't be doing music. They need to focus on something else they're really good at, because this isn't what their jam is. This isn't what their gift is.
Great life enriching hobby.
Yes, that's good. And then let's not conflate that with an artist who's trying to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
By throwing them in the pile of, well, they're one of these artists that doesn't make any money. Well, it's a hobby for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to make money.
Right.
So the problem is that, my point in sharing this with you guys and kind of revisiting this is there is a massive movement going on, and you are a part of it. We are the movement. Okay? We are, and this is the movement of the middle class of artists who are figuring out. I mean, 13,400 artists were paid $50,000 just in streaming revenue in 2020, just from Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when we did the math on that show a few months back, I think it was 2,700 artists made money over the last 60 years in the way the music business used to work, and now. I think after we backed everything out, all the major multi-million-dollar brand names and the currently signed acts and some of the lucky lottery ticket winners, blah, blah, blah. We figured out that somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 indie artists like you that you've never freaking heard of figured out a way to make at least $50,000 just in streaming on Spotify. But all you think about a Spotify is how crappy they pay.
Right, yeah.
Which is also true.
Not false. I see my statements.
Yeah.
Not false.
It's true, but you know what? For the top level industry guys and writers like you, Brent, and like Chuck Cannon, and like some of our friends who are hit songwriters, man, the struggle's real for them because their mailbox money from the work that they've
Hmm.
done has depleted more than 90%.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but to you, the indie artist who's trying to on their way up, trying to and sidestep, that's going to take care of itself here.
Hmm.
It's going to have to because you have the intellectual property.
Yeah.
The writers will just be like they'll figure out a different way to demand the attention that they get, and that's going to take care of itself. But to the indie artists trying to make their way, create some revenue, prove to their parents that they actually can make a living doing this,
Hmm.
um, y'all, this is news. You didn't have this before.
Right.
Okay. And so, the problem is that the record label machine and the music industry works wonderfully with broadcast strategies because the machine was built around broadcast strategies.
Hmm.
Broadcasting is one to many. That's radio, that's TV, that's live shows. The machine doesn't work well, or sometimes kind of not at all when it comes to breaking artists. With when they apply the tried and true 100-year-old broadcast promotional strategies to a brand new digital
Hmm.
platform. The machine has to be retooled to be effective. So just to give you credence on the fact, I want to articulate to everybody that you're in a movement,
We're in a movement. Hmm.
and it's a big, big, big deal. It won't be very long at all, and I'm talking less than 5 years, maybe less than 2, where when we're talking overall dollars, the amount of revenue generated from indie artists as a collective is more than the revenue generated from all the major label artists combined.
Hmm.
That won't take much longer. It
Hmm.
keeps growing. And then what happens? Money talks and BS walks.
Yeah.
Right? So all of a sudden different things are going to happen. Hey, you know what? As a group of indie artist people, we have a lot of power. Maybe each individual indie artist, even at the top of that hierarchy, can't compete with a major label artist.
Hmm.
But collectively, if they decide to do something, it can be devastating to the platforms,
Hmm.
right?
That's right.
So let's talk about movements for a second. I am knee deep in this incredible book by Eric Hoffer called The True Believer. The thoughts on the nature of mass movements, because that's what we're in. And I'm thinking about climbers, and I'm thinking about this industry, and I'm thinking about Brett, Brent, your passion, my passion, and how we want to help all these people. And when I heard about this book, I just was like, oh, I had to buy it right away.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read a couple excerpts from this because I want you to see what I see. I want you to see the power that you have. I want you to see where you're sitting and how important it is that you get to work right now because like the result of the work that you do now as a mass movement is so much more powerful than it even was had you had the same resolve say 5 years ago.
Hmm.
That's how quickly this is turning, and that's how strong this is, okay? So, this is specifically talking about movements. This book doesn't make any it's just about the psychology of a mass movement. It's not about commenting on them, having a prejudice against one or the other. Some of them are really good movements, some of them are really horrific movements.
Hmm.
But they were mass movements that people got on board with, massive amounts of people. And so it's the psychology of this that we want to focus on here. Okay. So
Cool.
keep your eye on the prize. Okay. It is understandable that those who fail should incline to blame the world for their failure. The
Ding, 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 ding,
remarkable,
ding. Sorry.
yeah, the remarkable thing is that the successful two, however much they pride themselves on their foresight, their fortitude, thrift, and other sterling qualities, are at the bottom convinced that their success is the result of a fortuitous combination of circumstances. The self confidence of even the consistently successful is never absolute. They are never sure that they know all the ingredients which go into the making of their success. The outside world seems to them a precariously balanced mechanism, and so long as it ticks in their favor, they are afraid to tinker with it.
Hmm.
So long as it ticks in their favor, they're afraid to tinker with it. Thus, the resistance to change and the ardent desire for it spring from the same conviction, and one can be as vehement as the other. Okay, so what we're talking about here now, we're talking about the powerful, right? We're talking about the
Mm-hmm.
people pulling the levers in the music industry, the top artists. They don't want it to change.
Right.
It goes on. Discontent by itself does not invariably create a desire for change. Other factors have to be present before discontent turns into dissatisfaction. One of these is a sense of power.
Mm.
I want you guys to have a sense of power.
A sense of agency.
Yes, I
Yes.
want you to feel the power that you have. When I show you these numbers, when we go down some of your eyes roll, your eyes glaze over, but I'm sitting here telling you, here's your scepter. You're a king. Go dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Go make this happen in your own world, right? Those who are awed by their surroundings do not think of change, no matter how miserable their condition. When our motto life is so precarious as to make it patent that we cannot control the circumstances of our existence, we tend to stick to the proven and the familiar,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is why battered wives don't leave.
Mm-hmm. The devil you know or the devil you don't.
There you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
We counteract a deep feeling of insecurity by making of our existence a fixed routine. We hereby acquire the illusion that we have tamed the unpredictable. Fishermen, nomads, and farmers who have to contend with the willful elements, the creative worker like you artists who depend on inspiration, the savage who is awed by his surroundings, they all fear change. They face the world as they would an all powerful jury. The abjectly poor, too. They stand in awe of the world around them and are not hospitable to change. It is a dangerous life we live when hunger and cold are at our heels. There is thus a conservatism of the destitute as profound as the conservatism of the privileged. And the former is as much a factor in the perpetuation of social order as the latter.
All right.
Think about that.
So what we're talking
Break.
about, we talked about this a little bit before we came on, so I had a little bit of a head start. What it means is, and what Johnny you said is the top of the ladder, top rung of the ladder, and the bottom rung of the ladder are both resistant to changing the status quo.
Yeah,
That's because
right.
the top of the ladder is doing really well, and they don't want to mess it up. Right? They got a good
Yeah,
thing going. Don't mess it up. Right?
yeah.
My wife is in a good mood. Don't do or say anything. Right? And the other
Yeah.
is the other have no margin for error.
Yeah.
They can't afford to make a mistake because they're on thin ice as it is. My wife is in a bad mood. I better not do or say anything, right?
Or one false move and we don't eat tonight, or we're out in the street.
Exactly. I can't try something different because I'm barely getting by as it is. If that doesn't work, I can't afford to be wrong. I'm done.
You see how the psychology of this, guys, works, and the middle class of artists have to understand their power, understand this movement, and I want you to be excited. I want this to be your faith in terms of your golden, what you were born to do.
Mm-hmm. So
Right?
it's
Not your religious faith, not your family faith, but a different faith,
yeah.
a faith that that you will be rewarded if you put the time and effort into this and see this for what it is.
So it's the middle rungs on the ladder that can go, I got a little margin. I can try something different. If it doesn't work, it's probably not fatal, but man, the upside is worth it.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And together we keep getting more and more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it goes on. I'm paraphrasing on some of this stuff here, but it's just another page or so. But offhand, one would expect that the mere possession of power would automatically result in a cocky attitude towards the world and a receptivity to change. But it is not always so. The powerful can be as timid as the weak.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. The powerful can be as timid as the weak. This is what I want you mid-level artists right now to tattoo on your frickin' foreheads when you're trying to punch through and get into the upper echelons of the music industry right now to more powerful people. The powerful can be as timid as the weak.
Well, you wonder why so much of what comes out of Nashville or comes out of whatever is so, in your estimation, maybe so bland, so mediocre, so all the same. They're powerful.
Oh,
They're the big labels. It's radio. Why don't they do something different? They're powerful because they're just as timid as the weak.
because
They don't want to
and
mess it
and
up.
they're as timid as the weak. And on that note, right, radio is all but sunk.
Mm-hmm.
It is on artificial life support, and the labels are one of the three big lines of nutrition and like the whatever you call it, the ventilator,
Yeah.
keeping radio alive. And as long as that's happening, when it's one thing to rock a boat, it's another thing when if you're sinking and that boat is just about to go under the water, you rock it too fast, you're going to make it sink quicker and end it all.
Yeah.
So you don't want to rock the boat. So you make a really good point, Brent. This is why everything's becoming so sterile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what seems to count more than possession of instruments of power is faith in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Where power is not joined with faith in the future, it is used mainly to ward off the new and preserve the status quo. I'll give you examples. It would have cost the taxi cab industry probably about 10% of what they spent if they chose what they spent fighting off Uber in every single market on every single corner of this globe. What they spent to fight off Uber and try to eliminate the competition, if they just said, let's change
Mm-hmm.
and adapt. We're yellow cab company. Who the hell is Uber? Right now, we've got such a bigger brand name. If we do what Uber's doing, they won't win.
Right.
But they're not going to do that because they see Uber as a threat that's going to degrade their position right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How about I'll give you another example. How about the labels versus Napster in 1999?
Oh, yeah.
How about the labels versus streaming 4 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Now, who's the label's daddy? Streaming.
Streaming.
But don't forget they were fighting it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is my point is, guys, this is predictable. This is predictable. This is not a surprise. Okay? So on the other hand, extravagant hope, even when not backed by actual power, is likely to generate the most reckless daring. For the hopeful can draw strength from the most ridiculous sources of power: a slogan, a word, a button. No faith is potent unless it is also faith in the future, unless it has a millennial component. So, too, an effective doctrine, as well as being a source of power, it must also claim to be the key to the book of the future. Those who would transform a nation or a world cannot do so by breeding and captaining discontent or by demonstrating the reasonableness and desirability of the intended changes or by coercing people into a new way of life. You can't sell it and you can't scare them into it. That's what that says, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They must know how to kindle and fan an extravagant hope. It matters not whether it be a hope of a heavenly kingdom or of heaven on earth, of plunder and untold riches, of fabulous achievement or of world dominion. If the communists, keep in mind this book was written in 1951, if the communists win Europe and a large part of the world, it will not be because they know how to stir up discontent or how to infect people with hatred, but because they know how to preach hope. Okay? Thus, the differences between the conservative and the radical, and there's this movement-wise, this is not politically, but it factors into politics too, okay? But the differences between these two seem to spring mainly from their attitude towards the future. Fear of the future causes us to lean against and cling to the present, while faith in the future renders us receptive to change. Both the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, they who have achieved much or little can be afraid of the future. So when you're looking for people to put on your team, when you're looking for the kind of characters that you need to advance your career, we're talking some deep level thought here, guys.
Mhm.
You don't want to be you care not whether they're rich or poor. You care not whether they're strong or weak or how much they have achieved. What you want to know is, how do they feel about the future?
Amen.
That's what you want to know. When the present seems so perfect that the most we can expect is its even continuation in the future, change can only mean deterioration. That's why the labels didn't want to deal with streaming. We sell CDs. This is going to screw up everything. Okay. Your bigger artists, your bigger managers, right? They're scared to death right now of deterioration because they don't understand the change. So they fight it.
Man,
This is human nature.
I think it's the same thing looking for co-writers. Is I want co-writers that feel confident and hopeful for the future.
Yeah.
Not that, well, I'm just really here writing songs and biding my time until I have to go, get go sell used cars again or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not the writers I want to be working with. I want the ones
There
that
you go.
have faith.
So, hence, men of outstanding achievement and those who live full, happy lives usually set their faces against drastic innovation. The conservatism of invalids and people past middle age stems too from the fear of the future. They are on the lookout for signs of decay, and they feel that any change is more likely to be for the worse than for the better. The abjectly poor are also without faith in the future. The future seems to them a booby trap buried in the road ahead. One must step gingerly. To change things is to ask for trouble. As for the hopeful, it does not seem to make any difference who it is that is seized with a wild hope, whether it be an enthusiastic intellectual, a land hungry farmer, a get rich quick speculator, a sober merchant, or an industrialist, or a plain working man, or a noble lord. They all proceed recklessly with the present. They wreck it if necessary and create a new world. Thus, there can be revolutions by the privileged as well as by the underprivileged. Okay? So, for men to plunge headlong into the undertaking of vast change, they must be intensely disconnected yet not destitute. They must have the feeling that by the possession of some potent doctrine, infallible leader, or some new technique, that they have access to a source of irresistible power. This is what I see in climbers, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I see in you. This is what I see in me. This is, when it comes to the music business, it's the new technique that we have to focus on. That is your source of irresistible power. You must have an extravagant conception of the prospects and potentialities of the future. Experience is a handicap.
Hmm.
In this, we're talking about a paradigm shift in the market of an industry like this. Experience is a handicap. Did you hear that? The men who started the French Revolution, who were wholly without political experience. The same is true of the Bolsheviks, the Nazis, and the revolutionaries in Asia. The experienced man of affairs is a latecomer when you're talking about a paradigm shift in the marketplace, which is what we are
Mm-hmm.
in. Who were the big titans in Hollywood? ABC, NBC, CBS. Then in the 80s, Fox.
Mm-hmm.
That's who the Emmys belong to. And then who was Netflix? It didn't exist in the 80s. It didn't exist for most of the 90s. It was started in 97. They didn't start doing it until 1998.
Yeah.
And they didn't start streaming until 2007. They didn't start streaming their own stuff until 2013. And 7 years later, in 2020, they're nominated for 160 Emmys in the nearest network, the former Titans, the big owners, the untouchables, the people who own the levers and pull them, who decide what your fate is, the gods of Hollywood. The nearest one, 31 Emmy Awards. Not even freaking close.
Yeah.
Not even close. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share with you guys. You know, the artists who understand this are going to dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're going to dominate. As artists, right now, you're predictably chasing a foothold in the old paradigm with the brand names of the executives and the important people from the old paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
These are not your people.
Hmm.
These are people that actually are dangerous to you because you don't have a big enough audience for the levers that they still can pull
Mm-hmm.
to help you with it. Right? It like if you're Tim McGraw, these are your people.
Right. Yeah.
Because they can still control the radio and it's all changing and everything's going down. But you know what? You have a multi-million-dollar brand name. And so that digital phone in your hand acts as a radio. It might as well. It's a broadcast platform.
Yeah.
But for you, the artist who's coming up, that is not a broadcast platform. That's a digital platform. And if you don't honor it, and if you try to do it the way they're doing it with Tim McGraw because they can, it's not going to work. And I will tell you that it's not because they can, because they are who they are. It's not because they can, because they have all the money. It's because they can, because he already has the audience.
Right.
They built it on broadcast. So if Tim McGraw were to just hand over all his money to you and say, hey, I want this guy, Brent, you're the one, you're going to be the next big star,
Mm-hmm.
and demanded that the label puts all the money that they put behind Tim McGraw into Brent Baxter, they can't build it because they'd have to do it on a digital platform.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? The money doesn't matter. The power doesn't matter now because this is what's going on. And the more that you guys understand this, the more power you actually see within yourselves.
I mean,
So,
if the label could break anybody just by pumping money in, why are there so many artists on labels that you've never heard of?
Thank you.
I mean, go look at the roster of a record label. Don't assume that just the people are the only ones on that label. They're not.
How about let's take that a step further? You bring up a really good angle I never even thought of, Brent. So prior to streaming, only 5% of artists on labels ever made money.
Right.
It wasn't because they sucked.
Nope.
It was because they didn't get on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Because there wasn't room. That's the tyranny of space. Right?
That's right.
So they just didn't get in front of an audience. Therefore, they couldn't grow an audience. Therefore, nobody knew the tree fell in the forest and nobody heard it. Game over. They don't win. But now, that doesn't have to be the case.
Right.
Right now, for a label that understands how to honor the digital platform, you could be a major label with 500 artists, and every single one of those artists make money because you're not solely dependent on radio to break them.
Because they're still not going to get all those artists on radio. Still not going to happen. Right. That shelf space is still just as limited as before. Those spins, those playlists of 90% of the spins are 40 artists. That hasn't changed.
So, and this is the reality today, but does that exist? There might be a couple little labels out there that are doing that, but the majors, no.
Right.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
Not because they're stupid. It's a different animal, man. And they don't want to change it. Why? Because it's bad for them.
Right.
It means it's going to go down. It's really hard to be at the top of your game and to have a long storied career that's long enough and storied enough that you would want to work with them. And you know their name as an industry person.
Mm-hmm.
And you would dream about being and working with that person and being on their team. That's, man, all they want to do is ride that surfboard into the shore pick it up, and walk into the sunset.
Yeah.
They're not interested in changing anything because they're gonna have to relearn a bunch of crap
Mhm.
and take a step backwards to take a step forward. So to you, power is not of import. How much money they have is not of import. What's important is, man, how do they feel about the future?
I mean, let's think about this. All the industry awards, you know, single of the year, who has the most number ones, all that stuff, right? Is there
Yep.
one for like the largest percentage of artists making money? You
Nope.
know, do they have one? Industry accolades for, oh my gosh, you didn't have any fat on your rosters, not just because you got rid of everyone but Tim McGraw and Kenny Chesney, but wow, you're actually growing people and they're making money. And for every one of your artists, now, is there an award show for that? I don't know. What do you call those?
No.
What would you call those? The no fat awards. I don't know. Um, I was going to say, because how do you call it? Something like they're all in the black, but then that could be a misconstrued nickname. I don't know what you
It
call that.
depends on what they're spending money on. Yeah,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, it depends on the
So
business model.
but that's, and so is that what industry execs or the middle people or whatever that are just trying to hang on to their jobs? Is that what they're going to be flying their flag around town like, hey, we made money on this artist that you still haven't heard on the radio, but they're making a living. We're going to be able to keep them on and do more records because we're doing digital stuff. And
Man, so a while back on the podcast, I talked about this former sort of label guy that I met at a party, and I was like kind of really excited because I knew who he was and blah blah blah. And now he's got like this company that they are a radio promotion company and they do indicator activator stations. So you're
Mhm.
going to chart on Billboard if you pay him enough money.
Yeah.
Okay, on the spins, they're trying to sell the fact that hey, if we get you the spins, you're going to chart
Yeah.
on top 200, which is sales.
Mhm.
Okay, and they happen to be working with an artist that I used to work with and, had very strong ties to. I'm not mentioning any names here. That artist got to number 46 on the indicator activator country chart.
Okay.
Awesome,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, most people don't.
From the time it hit 46, though, during that there's a period that I knew it was coming. And then I waited for a couple weeks afterwards. That artist was like above 90,000 streams on Spotify,
Mhm.
which is, I mean, hey, for a lot of indie artists, that's respectable. They're like, oh, I would love to be there. But this artist has built up that business
Mhm.
on their damn selves.
Yeah.
Okay. And this wasn't a result of that. Uh, and then where was it afterwards? So still below 100,000.
Didn't move the needle long term.
Didn't move the needle. Spent $100,000 to get that number
That
46.
will
I know
move the
that.
needle.
See what I'm saying? Guys, keep your eyes on the prize. Know the game. You are in danger of making really, really bad decisions trying to play the game the old way, and everybody wants you to play the game the old way.
Mhm.
This is where you really got to think for yourself. This is where this podcast is going to help you really keep your eyes on the right North Star, not the wrong North Star.
That's right.
You know, I mean, if you're a big fan of Monty Python, you ever seen The Life of Brian?
I haven't seen that one. I'm
Well,
more of
you of
a
all people, Brent, need to watch it
I'm more
because
of
do you know
the
the premise behind it?
is somewhat, and that's part of why probably I haven't watched it. But
It's awesome.
the Holy Grail Monty Python.
All right. Well, I mean, the whole premise of The Life of Brian is that the three wise men accidentally go to the wrong manger.
Yeah.
So they miss the son of God. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's this guy, Brian, who's just a regular guy. And now this whole mass movement. So he's like, leave me alone. I don't, like he doesn't want it, right? He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. He's not the guy, but they don't care, right? The three wise men told him
That's
this was the
funny.
deal. It's hysterical. But this is it. So your career could easily turn into The Life of Brian if you go to the wrong manger. And the wrong manger is the one you really want to go to. That's the one you think you want to go to.
Right.
That's the one with the biggest marquee value. That's the one that's going to impress your friends and your other musician friends and your parents and everybody like that. But unless they truly understand the future
Mhm.
and are open to the future, then man, talking with them is like banging your head against the wall.
Mhm.
Like what? So that was it. I mean, I just kind of looking back on the whole year and thinking about all the messages we're trying to put across. And I just thought, man, the parts of that book that I read just really get you to understand what happens with movements. And I'm here to tell you that you are the movement.
Mhm.
Okay. And you're the movement. You're the one that's going to really change the music industry here. And it's going to be collectively. So get to work.
Yeah, you want to choose wisely. So that makes me think of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where at the end,
Uh-huh.
they have all these chalices and goblets and stuff lined up, and the
Mm.
knight's like, if you drink from the cup of Christ, basically, then you'll be healed, you have eternal life or whatever. And so the bad guy is like, he grabs this golden chalice. He's like, this is the cup of
The
a
one with the
king.
most diamonds
Yeah,
and
exactly. And he
gems
dips
on it.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
water and he takes a drink and of course he dies, falls up,
Ghost.
explodes or whatever. And the knight was like, he chose poorly.
Poorly.
That's the
Yeah.
shiny like broadcast media. Like, this is the cup of a hit artist. Radio spins. And then you drink, spending $100,000 on it and you explode. He chose poorly. And then
Yeah.
there's this little cup of a carpenter over here that looks like it's digital. It doesn't feel famous.
Yeah, doesn't feel
Doesn't
famous.
feel famous.
Looks like something
Anyone
you
can
might
have
get out of
this.
Walmart on the bargain rack for $1.
Anyone could drink it. Anyone could have this cup. This is not a special cup.
And that was the cup. That was the right cup. That was the actual Holy Grail, right?
Exactly. Yep.
The chalice. That was the one. So there it is, guys. I hope you put a lot of thought into this. I am doing everything in my power and spending a lot of energy trying to articulate what I see, because it's a communication exercise for me. I see it. I get so excited. I think a lot of you understand my enthusiasm and respond to that. But sometimes maybe you don't really, really see what it is I'm saying, because if it is, you'd be doing things differently. So get the free download.
Mhm.
Okay. This will help you begin to kind of rewire your brain and see what I see. It's called He Who Owns the Traffic Rules the Road. That's what it's about. You want to own the traffic. Forget everything else. Focus on how you can create traffic and do it consistently on digital. And man, so much energy is going to come your way in the form of everything, up to and including money, like
Yeah.
quickly. Okay. And just go to giftfromjohnny.com and tell me where to send it. JOHNNY. Giftfromjohnny.com and tell me where to send it. If you want personal consults on this, sometimes it's hard to get an inventory of what your assets are, what you need to work on, where you should focus, where you should be spending your time, your money, blah, blah, blah. I'm available for that too. Just email us. We do charge for that. It's my time. It's more valuable now than it ever was before, believe me. Just ask Janelle, right? That's who you're fighting with for it. So I don't know. I don't know if I wouldn't want to be in a fight with her. You know what I mean?
Right.
But she's going to win. I can promise you. But just send me an email at info@daredevilproduction.com and put consultation in the subject line, and we'll set something up and kind of get you going on the right thing. But read that PDF, guys. It's 37 pages. It's easy read. There's a lot of graphics in there. I made it easy to read, okay? So don't get overwhelmed by the amount of pages, but read that damn thing so you understand the difference between broadcast and digital and the kinds of, what I want to do is change your thinking, because when you change your thinking and start asking the right questions, we're going to start getting more and more and more right answers. I've shared lots of my successes with you on this podcast. I got those not because I threw a dart in the dark. I didn't know the answer
Right.
until I asked the right question. And then I'm like, let's try this because I feel like this is going to solve a problem. And then guess what? It did. And so we're here for you for that, guys. Okay. This podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.